And so the 4 pillars are designed to help you focus on what is important. So there's manage, swap, mute, and block. So manage is for the things that do need attention, but are there different ways that we can look at it? Is it something that can be delegated? Is it something that you can bring in someone else's perspective if you're feeling really stuck? Is it a project for another department? Yeah, so you can manage it where maybe it's taking some of the lift off of your plate so that you can, focus on it in the right way. And then swap is for things that old systems, outdated habits that no longer work for us.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week, I bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Ginny Priem. Ginny is a powerhouse keynote speaker, TEDx presenter, and best-selling author whose work focuses on leadership, emotional intelligence, and sustainable success. With more than 20 years of experience in corporate leadership, she brings a grounded perspective to conversations about ambition, burnout, and growth. In a culture that rewards constant output, Ginny helps people move forward with clarity, resilience, and intention. She is the creator of the Unsubscribe framework, which helps high achievers make intentional change without losing momentum. Her podcast, Unsubscribe with Ginny Priem, explores the emotional shifts required to lead well today and has garnered more than 3 million video views on YouTube. Ginny is the author of the #1 best-selling guided journal, I'm My Favorite, and the memoir, You're My Favorite, A True Story, both of which encourage readers to trust their instincts and find their own way forward. Congrats on your success with Unsubscribe, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Carl, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about this because the subject of burnout and overwhelm and stress is something that is so prevalent and something that a lot of people are struggling with and aren't really equipped to handle. And so I think that you're one of the perfect people to have on the show to talk about this because of one of the things that I think is a key skill that not a lot of people have built is that ability to say no. And so I'd love to hear more about your approach to how people can build that ability to say no in work, life, and love. What do you suggest they do to get started with that?
Well, look, learn from my mistakes, first of all, so that I made the mistakes so that you don't have to. And so when you talked about burnout and overwhelm and being in that state, I know it all too well. I got to that point when I was in my corporate career. I was in a psychologically and emotionally abusive relationship. And at the peak of it, because I was trying to be everything to everybody, eventually what happens is you completely lose yourself. I had precancerous skin lesions removed. My hair all broke off and fell out, and I got shingles on my face at the peak of my, burnout and overfunctioning, as I like to call it. So it really is, I think it's a little bit when you start saying no, right, to get to the heart of your question, it takes a little bit of practice. It is like flexing a muscle. And it can be scary if you're someone that is a recovering people pleaser, and you don't want to rock the boat. You want to keep that harmony and not say no to anything. It can be really scary. But what you start to find is when you start to do it, is saying no actually keeps the right people in your life, and it shows the wrong people the door. And that's I think that's one of the big misperceptions about boundaries is that they're designed to keep people out, but they're not. They're designed to keep the right people in, and people will start to respect you more for it.
Yeah, that's a great vocalization of something that's kind of one of the people ever kind of is aware of it, but has never says that part out loud, that it's not about keeping people out, it's keeping the right people in, and also about they think that, oh, if I'm saying no, I'm being rude, people think I'm a bad person or I'm not a nice person. But actually when you establish those boundaries, people's respect for you goes up because it shows that confidence, it shows that strength and that understanding of what really matters to you. Whereas the people that say yes to everything or can't say no to something, they get so diluted and directionless because kind of ties into the whole, something I was talking about recently about how priority is, there's no plural version of it. You have a priority, and that's it. There's no priorities. That came around in like the 90s, and it's complete like hogwash that you can't have more than one priority. But people think that they, especially entrepreneurs or people in the business world, where there's so many things to keep track of or things that need doing, or so many opportunities, that if you don't say yes to all of them, there's that FOMO, there's all these things that make it seem like you have to say yes, whereas really the strength and what moves the needle and actually gets you to your big goals is knowing and having the strength to say no. And I think I'm sure you're the biggest example that you probably have heard of as well is the Steve Jobs coming back to Apple when they were in the 90s and like 90 days from insolvency, and they had like 600 plus products on the market. He cut it down to 4 by saying no to all these things and made them really streamlined and focused, and that got them the rebound they needed. And it's something that it wasn't saying yes, it's saying no to the right things. It allows you to say yes to the things that actually matter.
That's basically the principle behind unsubscribe and why I created it and why there's 4 pillars, because you can't just walk away from everything, right? You have to pick and choose what you say no to so that you can say yes. So it's about less, but with intention, so that you can focus on what truly matters. Because if you're too busy focusing on everything, you can't actually get to the important things.
Yeah, the surface level engagements with people or with projects or with mission statement, like all the things that are really matter in life. If you aren't able to commit to it and really invest in those, you're gonna actually end up missing out on more than you would if you just picked a few things, like I said, those 4 pillars, and really dove deep. And the most fulfilling parts of any endeavor are the things that happen way below the surface, not just the things you can get just from glancing at it or spending 5 minutes on it a week. You really need to commit to it and have that focus. And so when you're first talking with people, like if someone's starting to get into the unsubscribed framework, building those correct habits must be a big challenge. So how do you recommend people start building that no muscle back up, and from being a like anemic, flimsy noodle to super swole, like guns of saying no steel? That made no
Yeah.
sense.
Get to the root level, right?
Yes.
So, and so the 4 pillars are designed to help you focus on what is important. So there's manage, swap, mute, and block. So manage is for the things that do need attention, but are there different ways that we can look at it? Is it something that can be delegated? Is it something that you can bring in someone else's perspective if you're feeling really stuck? Is it a project for another department? Yeah, so you can manage it where maybe it's taking some of the lift off of your plate so that you can, focus on it in the right way. And then swap is for things that old systems, outdated habits that no longer work for us. I love to use this example from a keynote because I love how people apply it. Like, of course, I have all my own ideas of ways that I have applied or I think people could apply unsubscribe. But then when I hear the vast way that people are applying it, it's so gratifying. But one was this group of employees was so excited because they were HR professionals and they were so excited about swap because they had been doing payroll manually and they were getting an automated system. And so that was their swap that they were so excited about. They're like, you have no idea how much time and energy this is going to save us, that we can focus on more important things now. The people, the humans, right? So swap is, exchanging things for something that's maybe a little bit more productive or better. Or if you think about it in your personal life, I love to use the example of exercise, right? Sometimes people are like, oh, well, I don't have 60 minutes, so I might as well do nothing at all. Well, you can swap it for 10 or 15, or if you can't do high intensity interval training for whatever reason, maybe you try something a little more gentle like walking or yoga, right? So we can swap things that are more fitting for us in this time. And then mute is, what can be tabled? Is this something that we can address at a later time? Something that we need to take a break from that doesn't need to be handled immediately, urgently. And then block is for what I call, that's where things go to die. So block is for the things that can be completely eliminated. Like maybe it is that 7 a.m., meeting or call every Monday morning that everyone gets online and starts calling and texting each other afterwards, talking about what a waste of time it is, which is just wasting more time. So really analyzing and taking a look at what's working and what's not.
Yeah, that time spent auditing which of your activities or what your team's activities or your what you're focusing on that can go in each of those different buckets or pillars is something that adds so much value after you're done with it. But people often are still in that mindset of like, gotta keep going. They aren't willing to take that pit stop to assess and evaluate what actually works and what doesn't, and what should be blocked, what could be swapped, what should be managed. All those different examples you just shared. And it's like a race car and like a NASCAR. If you don't stop and change the tires and refuel and get all the stuff swapped out, you're gonna blow out. You're not going to finish the race. You're going to burn out. And it's the having the strength, and especially if you're in the leadership position, to give people the permission to pause and to stop and not expect them to keep going all the time, and to hold yourself and your team accountable to it, and listen to feedback from what people say should be in each of those four categories, and not just in like a one-on-one session where if you actually, because it's and actually the episode that dropped this morning with Rory Sylvia talks about how if you have a team giving a quarterly retrospective on what works and what doesn't, if someone says, hey, I'm noticing this, and three other people's heads nod, okay, that's like a real thing to address. Where if you're just doing one-on-ones and you're not getting necessarily a sense of if it's really an issue, if it's just there, it's more easy to dismiss it from one person. But if the whole room goes, yeah, this is a real problem, then okay, that's a data point that we can actually act on. And so but you got to have that scheduled habit of assessing what's working on a regular basis, not just annually or not just in these sporadic bits of feedback from people every once in a while, but having it part of the process and the system that your team operates by. Because when you have that self-correcting or that feedback loop, and you have the open communication and the trust with your team, then you're actually going to be able to improve, and you're not going to have people that are burning out, because you're able to hopefully put on most of the things that you're doing, you might realize or can go in the block thing, because most teams, it seems like, are having way too much on their plate and just need to get some things off, and just getting those things off allow you to actually get the real important things done, and done well.
And it's so empowering, exactly what you were just talking about, when you do have people coming together and you're open to feedback of going, okay, like people are unhappy, this isn't working. What is working, but what isn't? And let's focus more on what is working and remove, unsubscribe from the things that aren't. And, just imagine the empowerment of that team and those individuals when you have the opportunity to come together and have those conversations and use kind of a catchy language, right? When everyone's speaking the same language, it makes it feel a little bit less serious and daunting. And you're like, oh, hey, maybe we could manage that marketing campaign, right? And so it's not like, hey, you had a bad idea, right? It's let's manage it to see what's going to work even better right now.
Yeah, and well, you mentioned, I like that you mentioned a shared language that helps make it a little less corporate sounding, a little more engaging. But also what I think that has a huge impact on is the sense of belonging your team has together. Because if everyone speaks a similar language or has similar terms and can shorthand the discussion in the meeting of, oh, that's definitely a block, or that's definitely a manager, and everyone goes, oh yeah, and just nods along because everyone's in on what that all means. That creates that sense of camaraderie and teamwork and belonging that most people don't have that in their lives, especially at work. And so if your team can create that, if you as a leader can create that, then you're going to have people that are going to be putting in more effort and delivering better quality results and are showing up for each other, because there's more than just they see other people and have that and see the relationships, and more than just the job titles or the roles. It's about really the people they work with, because they have more in common than just like the cubicle they sit at in the office, proximity, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So when it's, and I imagine you've had some great success stories from implementing the unsubscribe kind of framework with people. I'd love to hear an example, because we've been talking about some of the concepts, but I'd love to hear kind of like, here's what it was like before, during, and after this process, so we can get a sense of what they really stand to gain by using it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we just talked about is creating that common language. People start to, and I love that you talked about not attaching like titles. You know, sometimes people get so attached to their titles that they lose sight, right? Like, this is really about looking at outdated old systems. Like, the old way was, you are the first person to show up in the office and you're the last person to leave, and you work the hardest and you work the longest, and then you get promoted, and then you get the salary increase, and then you rinse and repeat, and for the next promotion, the next title, that, you know, the next salary increase. And that's just not really the idea of success anymore. And I think people need to, this is an opportunity for people to reevaluate the way that they're looking at success. So we see increase in productivity because people are removing things that are those meaningless things just because it's the way it's always been done. And so when you start to have a more forward thinking way of looking and filtering priorities, I believe you can have more than one priority, then you can, really evaluate what matters. So we see an increase in productivity, we see less distractions. And I don't know if you know, but the average person is actually productive for less than 3 hours a day, because it takes you almost 30 minutes to get refocused once you've been distracted and pulled away from what you're working on. So by having unsubscribe, now you're making better, faster, clearer decisions. You're wasting less time. You're more productive, and more productivity obviously is going to lead to increased, revenue generation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of the snowball effect of what we're seeing.
Yeah, the loss of productivity from different distractions, and the whole idea of just that people think that they can multitask when our brains don't multitask. You can switch between things and do two things poorly, or you can do one thing well. And yeah, and like that focus on, again, what's the most important thing for each person to be doing, and it's not as much about that, like you said, that hustle and like be the first one and last one and just kind of grind your way up the ladder. That and really understanding more about, because also when you do, I imagine this process also helps you figure out who on your team likes different tasks or good at different things. So you know that if you have something come up, then you can delegate it to the right people who are actually going to enjoy doing that sort of work, and you're not having someone who doesn't have the skills or doesn't get the same sense of enjoyment out of certain tasks. You can find out who the best fit for different jobs are in your team. Is also a huge benefit, because if you're asking someone who, like I said, the HR people running payroll, they're like, oh, we can't stand doing it this way. It's no fun, and it's keeping us from doing things we'd actually enjoy doing that would be better suited for us. If you don't understand what those alignment mismatches are, then you're going to be getting less productivity from your team just because you're having the wrong people do the wrong jobs.
Well, and it's not even about the level of enjoyment. It might be the qualifications or the speed at which they can do the work,
Yeah.
and if you think about applying it to your personal life, like it's tax season, and the two indefinites, right, are death and taxes. So when you think about it that way, like if taxes, you don't enjoy doing them, you're not that great, so it's going to take you a lot of time. This is why people outsource those things. And you can apply those same principles to your work if it's something that you're not great at. Like for me, I love my podcasts. I love my YouTube videos. I don't like editing them. And so I recently finally was like, instead of banging my head against the wall, I was like, I need to manage this. I need to pull somebody in that's a great editor that can do it way faster than I can. And then I get to do and focus on the part of the creation that I actually enjoy and love. And it's been such a game changer.
Yeah, getting the things that you dread doing and don't do very well because it's not suited for your skill set or your personality is a huge win for everyone. So if someone's wanting to get started on this process, like what's the best way to get started? What's like the first step they can take? Because I imagine this is not something that you can snap your fingers and immediately change for you and your team. So what's a good first step for people to take if they're interested in learning more?
I would say grab the book because the book is really designed to have you at the end of each chapter, there's a little workbook section so that you can actually put the work in action and apply it to the way that it resonates most for you right now. So that's available on my website. It's on Amazon. It's called Unsubscribe: Why Letting Go is a Secret to Getting Ahead.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Ginny. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please like, leave a review, and subscribe. If you want to learn more about myself or Ginny, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.